Good evening. I'm Sean Jackson, board member of Donaldson Hermitage Neighborhood Association, and I am very excited this evening to be having a conversation, first of all, with you, our viewers here in Nashville, and then secondly, I am really excited to speak with Vencen Horsely. Vencen is a civil rights activist. He was born and raised right here in the Nashville area in Hermitage, and he has been active all of his life in the struggle for human equality. And so I asked Vencen to sit down with me and have a conversation. And Vencen, I'll share a little bit, and then we'll jump into this. This was really birthed. And Vencen, I don't know if you remember, you and I were on the phone, and it was a Saturday morning, and I live here in Old Hickory, and I was wanting to walk my daughter in her stroller, around the neighborhood a little bit, and she's 5 months old. And Vencen, it came upon me at that time in that conversation with you, and I shared with you, I was very vulnerable and said, Vencen, I'm having some feelings that I've never felt before, where it was at a time after George Floyd had been murdered and in the upswing of the protests, and it was during the time when people were actually taking their cars and running into the activists. And I thought about, hey, I'm about to walk my daughter around the neighborhood, and if something were to happen, if someone were to veer their car towards this Black man and this child, and I thought about my wife, and she would be here at the house, and did I want to even put her in that situation, put me in that situation, my daughter in that situation? And I realized, Vencen, that my whole reality had changed. And I was now feeling and seeing things and fearful of some things and angry about some things and concerned about some things that before that time I knew them in theory, but it had become a part of my life. And so at that time I said, Vencen, I want to get with you and let's get your perspective on what is going on, because selfishly, as a Black man, I am trying to find my way through this. And as we serve on, the Donaldson Hermitage Neighborhood Association, we are about bringing equality to entire neighborhoods in the city of Nashville. And so thank you so much for being here tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure. I've been looking forward for this moment. I remember the conversation that we had, I guess, a few months ago when we had breakfast at the Cracker Barrel. And one thing after another have happened, but I'm excited tonight to be able to have a conversation with you about myself personally, and also just my thoughts about the community and perhaps even the nation as a whole.
Yeah, I remember that at a Cracker Barrel. And so one thing that came across at that breakfast, Vencen, was, I went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and I actually have a minor in African American studies. And none of that mattered in that moment in Cracker Barrel when you shared with me what it felt like and what you endured to sit at that counter during segregation in order to advance human rights. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks in a very real way that, I felt guilty. And I think I told you this at the time, Vince, and I felt guilty because my generation, we have come in on the coattail of your generation and all the doors that you kicked in. And I just felt like I knew I needed to be doing more. And when I looked at I just looking at a fraction of what you had done, it just really propelled me. And tonight is a big piece of that. So here's the question, Vincent. The first question I want to kick off with is, for you, when was the moment that you really stood up for civil rights? Like, what was happening? How old were you? What started this journey for you?
As a youngster, I grew up in what was considered the country. It's where Black people and white people lived in close proximity to each other. but yet it was a community divided, black, white, separate, and unequal. And that was confusing to me. And but as time went on, back in I guess the late 60s, I became aware of a man by the name of Jim Lawson, who was conducting some training for preparing people to participate in what would be called the sit-ins. But prior to that, I would always try and be knowledgeable of what Black people were doing to advance themselves. I would always like to read Ebony magazine and Jet magazine, and what I would hear of what other people were doing. But this became a sort of a firsthand information, a time that I could see people in person that's trying to make a difference. Although I was aware in 1957, a great man, a great friend of mine, a great man by the name of A.Z. Kelly, who led the effort to desegregate the schools. In 1954, there was the court ruling that separate was not equal. But they played around with that for around 3 years. And in Nashville, Mr. Kelly decided to talk with as many people as he could to convince them to enroll their children in schools that were predominantly white. And that was a task, because there were people that had blood in their eyes, were saying, no, they're not going to come to our school. And so instead of having a group of people going, they came up with a grade a year. They started with first graders and went on. But that was just one incident that led me to become attractive in 1960 to when I would hear Jim Lawson and then all the young people that was involved in it. And some of those people became household names, including John Lewis and so many of them, James Bevel and some of the women like Diane Nash and Pauline Knight. And, I try to be careful about names, because when you do that, you ignoring someone that was just as important. And John would be one of the first person who would say that, that he was just one. John would say, I'm just a protester. And that's what I've always said. I'm just participating. But then after the months of protesting, having the sit-ins, then I was amazed, as most people, what was happening to them. They were being beaten and all the things was happening. They just didn't seem real. But yet there was no response to that. And I was just amazed about that. And when we would go to meetings at a Clark Memorial Church, and they would talk about the importance of nonviolence. And so I observed that, and some Saturdays, instead of me going to my job shining shoes in Old Hickory, I'd go downtown. I just want to see that, watch it, and what they were doing. I didn't know that I was really being indoctrinated to what I would end up doing in the future. So those sit-ins went on for months. Then the next year, in 1961, there's a man by the name of Jim Foreman came up with the idea of freedom rides. And some of the same people was involved in the sit-ins became parts of the freedom rides. And that lasted for, I guess, 3, maybe 4 months. And now, then Vincent, afterwards, in the latter part.
Exactly, what is a freedom ride? So, like
the freedom rides, what they were challenging, the some of them, the right to even to ride on a bus cross country. And if you did, you had to sit in the back. There were seats that you couldn't ride on. You had to ride in the back. But then also, when the bus would stop for breaks, the black people couldn't go to the restrooms and all, so they had to stay outside and whatever. So they were really, it was the whole policy of the bus transportation that was being challenged. And one thing that happened, and I was really excited when they reported. Mm-hmm. It was a group of white ladies that was part of the Freedom Ride. And what they would do, they would go to the black restrooms.
Interesting.
And the white people and the black ones would go to the whites. So that they didn't know what to do about that. So they wanted to charge each one with I guess trespassing. That was a term that they used on that. So that was a strategy that they were using on that. And one person that you don't hear about, her name is Shalene McCullough. She was one of the white women that young white girl that influenced a lot of the black women that to come on, y'all, let's go and get on those freedom rides. And some of them were concerned because they were in school. They didn't want to miss out on school and here. But she was one of the leaders for the freedom rides. Matter of fact, she was one of the few people that actually left Nashville when the bus came through Nashville to be on the freedom rides. Okay. Then in 1962, it was another little quiet period because until November of 1962, some of the people that was involved in the sit-ins met in Nashville, and they became a part of what was already called Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, which that name came about in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay.
But they met, and it was, I guess, over 200 people. And it was agreed to in that meeting that the leader of the Nashville SNCC would be John Lewis. And so that Thanksgiving weekend, that was Thanksgiving weekend, that Saturday, we had a march from First Baptist Capitol Hill to downtown Nashville. And that was my first time. Really
how old, do you remember about how old you were at that time? Do you remember about how old you were?
I was 19.
Okay. Young man.
And so that was my first time. And then afterwards, it would maybe be 5 or 6 of us. Every Saturday, we would go downtown to those different places. There were 2 places in particular. It's on Church Street. On one side, it was a restaurant, was called B&W, and the other one was Cross Keys. So we would just go back and forth. Then, the numbers, occasionally more people would join in. It never was over 10 people.
And what you would do, and so what would you do when you went into the B&W?
We didn't try to go in. What we would do, we would just have a sign, and we would publicize that this place is segregated, and they wouldn't allow black people to enter for service.
I see.
And that was disturbing to the business owners because that was impacting their customer base.
Sure. Vincent, you mentioned, it's so interesting that you mentioned John Lewis. Congressman Lewis is we all are aware, recently passed away, and it brought about a lot of pride, a lot of reflection for the nation. And recently, I come to find that you and John ran in similar circles. And can you tell me a little bit about how
Well,
that went?
John, I consider John, I guess we considered each other very personal friends. We would talk about things and, just personal things. And then we would talk about uh, strategies for protesting. And I've said to other people, some of our best meetings was in jail. We would talk about, what would we do next, and I would have nothing but admiration and respect for John, not only as a participant, but also just as a person. I could truly consider him a personal friend. I think the incident that I was posted on my Facebook is one I have seen that picture several places, other places that this large restaurant was called Morrison's Cafeteria.
Okay.
So at that time, we had went out, some of the college students and adults would, I called them dropouts, and I'm not saying that being disrespectful. And so John was spending a lot of times in Atlanta because there was a lot of things that were going on that he was concerned with. There was some folk, there was folks saying that the devil's always in the details.
Mhm.
There were some people that was trying to replace him as the a chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And John was looked at favorably by Dr. Martin Luther King. And I think John appreciated that, and he enjoyed that. And so we were at this place at Morrison's, and we'd gotten a lot of young people. I guess they were all in their teens, and that particular day, it was probably, at least 300 people or more.
A lot of people.
And the day before that, I'd gotten arrested. And what they would do, the police would identify someone that they think was in charge or leader. They would arrest that person, hoping if they arrest that one, then some of the people would, it would impact whether people would continue on. Sure. And so I'd gotten arrested that day. What they didn't know, more people came the day after I was arrested. And then the day that then another time, well, a couple of days later, when I got arrested, it was in the same police wagon that I was in before. And I was in there and a couple of more young people. And after the policeman say, well, we waiting on, here come another one, we'll put him in there. So the problem, there were so many young people who was 12, 13 years old. They didn't know what to do, what to charge them with. Mm-hmm. And I looked up, I said, John? John looked at me, he said, what are you doing? I said, what are you doing? I didn't know you were here. And so we talked about that. So I didn't know he was in Nashville, but he said, I was here last time. We were protesting, I didn't know whether he was there or not. And so we went on to jail, and they took some of the younger people to a little part. They called it a juvenile, which was the same courthouse. They just charged them with that. And they charged John, myself, and I think maybe a couple of other people with as adults in general sessions court.
Mm-hmm. Vencen, when you tell of John Lewis and yourself and how you guys have been advocating and fighting for human rights for a long time, and so many stories. And now that John has left, it definitely makes me consider my own mortality. And I'm not sure if you feel the same way. And I'm curious, like when you think about your own mortality and the work that you've done in civil rights here in Nashville and nationwide, how do you feel about it? When you look into the future of the struggle that will continue, probably when you leave, probably when I leave, are you optimistic? What are your thoughts about it?
One thing that I say when I talk to groups and the younger people and even some a little older, that every generation must carry on the effort to make their community and the nation better. So and there are three things that's extremely important, and I have said that numerous of times. When you start protesting, regardless of what you're protesting, there are three things. One, that you need to determine what the purpose is. Why are you protesting? And secondly, what is the most effective strategy that you can use? You know, in the 60s, it was the sit-ins and the protesting that here. And then thirdly, what would be an acceptable outcome? What was it that you were wanting to achieve? So those three things, and that can be different from one generation to another. But the process is still important. Why you doing it, how you doing it, and what you expect from doing it.
So that will help us focus those efforts. Okay. Vincent, some people feel like, and I've heard this argument, I'm not sure if you've been part of any debates that go back and forth on this point, but some people feel like that when we consider the great gains that were made during the civil rights movement for African Americans and human rights, people feel like African Americans as a people, that we are not as far along as we should be at this point in time. In other words, saying that, look, there were so many great gains made during civil rights. However, the next generation is not pushing, not protesting, not being vigilant. And so therefore, as a race, African Americans are not really where we should be. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, of course, that's a perception, and it's one that really is worth thinking about. But you've got to do more than just think about it. You have to, what can you do about it? How can I accomplish that? You know, I think that's a very unfortunate when I hear people say we hadn't gained, and I've heard people make what I call a senseless statement that we're worse off. You know, we're not. When you see people that if you just open your eyes, you see some progress being made by individuals. But then how do you broaden that progress is what's important. But that gets back to strategy. It gets into how much you value yourself, how much you value, I guess, the vote, participating in the voting process, of the what I would call the political process. How you value education, how you value. You have to look at that individually and ask the question: what am I doing to advance myself? And if I advance myself, then that's one more person that we can look at and say that you can say we. We can say we because I have done what I could to advance myself. Now, if a person is not really making any kind of effort, then they can say we are not doing anything. but they're really taking a look at themselves. But there are always opportunities to, and I would be disappointed if people ever get to the point where they're saying we can't do more, because I think every race of people, every gender person want to progress, looking for progression in their life, and it's encouraging when you see the people that look like you, a same person with the same agenda that's like you, that women look forward to seeing other women progressing. Black people look at other Black people. I think his people, Hispanics and all, are encouraged when they see someone else that looked like them doing well in society. And then you should feel like if someone is not doing as well as you think that we could, then that gives you an opportunity to be able, how can you individually address that, and how can you be able to encourage other people to address that. But how you choose to do it, it really gets down to a strategic effort. But just trying to be direct on that, yeah, there's some things that can be done. You know, and I say 10 years from now, 20 years from now, people will still be looking around and say that we can make life better. But every individual should want to make a life better.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, as a group, as a race, that African Americans have progressed, and for the people who say, hey, we are not where we could be or where we should be, 9 times out of 10, that's really a person that should be looking in the mirror, and their statement is more aligned with what they themselves as an individual are not getting done, as opposed to lumping the whole race into that, because there are individuals who are excelling and at higher heights than ever before. Is that?
And this is one thing that why I usually, as a pencil partner, I have the opportunity to be a pencil partner from my employer to McKissick School. And one of the programs that I was excited about, it was Career Day. That was something that they had never had before. And I would invite people from the Black community, from different professions, to come in and talk about them, about themselves, but also what they had to do to achieve the status that they are in. And so hoping that would inspire some people to say, I want to do that. And what people would realize, or what people would be able to see, some of the same conditions that they lived in, those people that are achievers had the same experience, but they went beyond that. They stepped out of that into where the positions they're in. Now, that's easier said than done, of course. So that's why people have to be there to encourage and do what they can to assist other people to make a better life.
Got you. Okay, shifting gears now to the recent George Floyd killing. Vincent, what do you think about that murder, and how do you feel about it?
Well, that George Floyd incident led to what wasn't thought about prior to that. It brought some discussion about policing in the nation. It allowed or it required city officials and even on a national to look at policies. And then one thing about a policy it's good to say you have a policy, but then what are the practices? And so it just led to hope it would be positive from that, although that was terrible what happened. But what would come from that is that there would be some policies that and practices that would address that type of behavior.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I hear that. There's a lot of focus on legislation. There is a lot of focus on making sure that dollars are going to support Black businesses. So there are a lot of things along the law as well as in practice that are being looked at. I'm curious about when you think of, in your last statements, you mentioned voting. I was really glad to hear that you mentioned voting. You mentioned politics. You mentioned what I would call more of a well-rounded strategic approach to change. When you
Sure.
think about the recent protests in Black Lives Matter, uh, sure, there's a lot of protests right now, and a lot of things are being looked at. Can you talk to me about what should happen after the protests, where it's not just protesting and people go home? What should happen after the protest, Vince, and what should that look like?
As I said earlier, there are three things that I advocate. One, you have to know why you're protesting. And then what is the effective strategy that you use? And thirdly, what is it that you seek to, what is your outcome? What is it you want to say that, what was the result of that?
Mhm.
And that can, it depends on where you, it, it, where you involved, or when you involved, or whether you're talking about law enforcement, or whether you're talking about education, or whether you're talking about uh, 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 job opportunities.
Mhm.
It's important to come up with some type of strategy, some communication. How do you address that?
Sure.
It's one thing to say I'm protesting it, but
Right.
what is it you want to accomplish
That's right.
from your protesting?
That's right. Vincent, are there, when you think about maybe not, because there are a lot of changes I'm sure that you would like to see happen, I would like to see happen, the viewers would like to see happen, but can you think of maybe three specific things that, hey, look, after the protests of Black Lives Matter, if there were three specific changes that would come out of that, do you have any thoughts around what those three things might be, in your opinion, that would be good?
One, I would like for Black people become more involved in economics, investment. One of the things that was I was disappointed in the 60s that as we were fighting to gain access to business, white-owned business, what Black-owned business was shutting down. We were so excited to desegregate that we forgot about Black business that we enjoy. I guess, and I say this not trying to be, not to make a point, that the only Black business that's still booming is the Black church.
Oh.
It's where people feel very comfortable in, and that's where we feel comfortable gathering. But I recall as a young boy going to the theaters, to the bowling alleys, and the nice places to eat and all, but yet they were segregated. But then there were business that we just felt like that it was wrong to say that you can't patronize those businesses because of a segregated policy. I just like to think that we can continue to invest our money in Black business. And Black business are struggling. If you look around North Nashville, and I'm sure South Nashville and others, I'm impressed with so many young Black people that's trying to open up business that people don't know anything about it. You know, I try and patronize them by just going in and just saying, I know you're here, and letting people know that people know about them. You know, and I don't want to be attacking anybody, but the truth is what it is. We need to have a Black Chamber of Commerce, more than just somebody saying that this is something I do and have a name. It needs to function to be able to assist a Black business. So that's one of the, how we spend our money is extremely important. It would make a big difference on how we progress as a people. We don't spend our money wisely as we could. That would be so helpful to other people that other races would do, and how they have. It's not a business that they didn't grow big. They weren't born big. They became big because of people supporting them. And we can do the same thing with Black business. Then not only economic, but also through through political, is to be able to identify people that you can really rely on and depend on to understand what the issues are in the community. So I don't get so excited because of a Black face. Okay. And I say that to people, you first of all, before I support you, get behind you, I want to know something about your agenda. Mm-hmm. Are you just seeking an office just to say, just I want you to put, because you like the way I look. I want more than the way you look. I want to know what are your ideas of what you would promote once you get into office, and then how much you're going to listen to me. Okay. So that's one of the things that I have said as a leader. To be a leader, you got to be connected. I served for 9 years as president of my union, of my job. The thing that I was most proud of, when people would tell me how much I would listen to them. So you can't lead unless you connected. You know, you take, and I use sort of you take it's a train that passes by my house, and it's I guess the engine, but there are other cars hooked up to the engine. Okay. If the engine was the only thing running on the track, it would just be useless. Right. But you got to be connected. You have to have some kind of connection to the people that you claim that you represent. You want to be able to, instead of saying what I'm going to do, it have to be what can we do. And then when you say we, you saying that sincerely, that you represent people. Now, folks look for leadership. They want something that out of that person that they feel like they couldn't do individually. But at the same time, they want to should be able to associate themselves with the person who claimed to be their leader. So we got to be involved in the political, vote wisely, not just because a person come to you and with their ideas. I want to know a little something about that individual before I cast my precious vote for that person.
That's right. Vincent, hold on. So to catch folks up who are watching, I'd asked Vincent about 3 specific things that he would like to see come out of the recent Black Lives Matter protests on the heels of the George Floyd murder. 2 of them have been named: economic empowerment and political engagement, affiliation, and clarity. Very good. Okay. And the third, Vincent, what do you think?
The third one is personal, something that I hear is community engagement. What do you think about your community? And that gets down to your responsibility. I said to a group of young people, this was back last year, and what is a neighborhood? You know, a neighborhood is more than just buildings. It's more than, but it's a neighborhood. It's really families caring for each other, supporting each other, loving each other, understanding each other, regardless of whether you living in a trailer park, whether you living in Napier projects, or whether you living in some neighborhood with expensive homes. To be a neighborhood is a relationship that you have with the other people in that neighborhood, that you're concerned with them. You know what? Out this area, there are all kind of neighborhoods, and they have neighborhood associations. And I said to some wonderful people that I have become acquainted with and been a partner with, that I wouldn't take anything from them. There's a bunch of young ladies in South Nashville that work hard with Napier Park and Tony Suter Park to try and encourage the residents of those housing projects to look after each other. A neighborhood, which is projects, this should not become a sanctuary for people who really have other motives. You should be just as concerned with your neighborhood in the projects as a person would in one of your most affluent neighborhoods. People are concerned with how who's living next door to them, across the street from them. So that was a third thing is that I'm concerned with. If you can do that, be supportive, watch out for each other, you know, be concerned when there's any type of behavior going on in your community. And most of the things that happens in some of our neighborhoods is that shouldn't happen, happens by people that look just like you. So we need to be able to identify that and be supportive. If there's something going on in your neighborhood that you don't think is right, say something. Come out of the closet, come out of hiding and say, this is something that I'm not going to tolerate. I might be poor. Maybe I'm not I'm not living as well as I want to live. But one thing about it, I'm going to live in peace. I'm going to live. I'm going to feel safe.
And take on a role in making that happen. All right.
That's exactly.
All right. Wow. Okay, Vincent. So to wrap us up here tonight, and again, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Vencen Horsely, lifelong civil rights activist and Nashvilleian. I mean, Vincent, your life speaks to the struggle. You have personally sacrificed so much. I mean, you put yourself in harm's way over and over again, and you are a beacon of motivation and encouragement and uplifting in our schools and on our community boards and in your church and other affiliations. When you think about the city of Nashville and all the love and support they've given you, and when you look on the horizon and you see, the current struggle with COVID-19, economics, racism, the protests, and November's coming up, and just all the things that we are involved in day to day. Take some moments, Vincent, and just talk to your Nashvillian compadres from your heart about what you want them to know from you about this struggle in this day.
Well, one thing that we can't allow hard times, we can't allow conditions that we have, we don't have anything to do about it, as far as the virus is going on. But you can't allow that to be a distraction from you trying to make life better for yourself. Where there is a will, I believe, I with all my heart, and I believe this ever since I was just a little boy, just right out of my diapers, that God will make a way. And I believe that, and I have seen that with my own eyes. And when I think about some of the things that I have been experienced with, and sometimes I sort of shake my head that, and I know all the times that my experience and the experience of others is encouraging. If things, if it happens, if good things can happen for me, it can happen for you too, is what I would say, people that hear, that you have to expect that. And your expectancy should influence you to do what you can. If what you can't do individually, you have to look out for someone who can do it and follow that person. It's here as I have done. I appreciate all the folk that I have been trying to follow in their footsteps. Some of the great men and women in our community, both black and white, that I have just really tried to pattern myself after them. And I just hope and I trust that someone can say, and maybe they won't be able to call my name, but they can say something that they can see and hear, that say that they want to do some of the same thing that they saw me doing. First of all, it starts with my family. I want to be able to hear I have a wonderful daughter and some wonderful grandchildren, and one day my grandchildren will be health children and all, to say that they followed that same path. That's why we have to be careful how we walk, because we're opening up a path for hopefully that someone else will be able to see their way even clearer than those who started out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this evening, Vencen Horsely, lifelong activist and proud board member of Donaldson Hermitage Neighborhood Association. Everyone, I'm Sean Jackson, also board member of the same Donaldson Hermitage Neighborhood Association. And this has been a conversation with Vencen Horsely. Thank you so much, Vincent.
Good, thank you, and good night.
Good night.